Good morning, Dan. This is Tuesday, the 10th, first day of school for Winona Area Public Schools, which means first day of school for my exchange student. I hope my head's actually in this frame. There we go. I have a new phone. Not because I want a new phone. I'll tell you about that later. And I want to use the fancy cameras on the backside rather than the selfie camera or whatever you call it. Anyway, I have a lot to talk about. I want to talk about Johnny. I want to talk about Beth's new job, lifting weights / swimming, Mike's father-in-law, my new phone, the roasting space. But I will defer that until later. I have been meaning to make a video for a while and just haven't. You know how it is. You get in a little hole and you just don't feel like you have the energy to make one. So it's not even energy. It's just, honestly, I think for me, it felt like I have nothing important in my life worth talking about. So then I watched your video about ranting about protecting the masses from misinformation. And I realized, hey man, if you can talk about stuff like that, I can talk about anything, like the pimple on my butt. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about your video. You started off with your camper van. I think I only counted 6 things that you talked about in their videos. There's clearly 5 more things out there. They must be really important things because you're saving those for last. But obviously you wanted to get on to the subject of experts. So I, believe it or not, I watched your video. I listened to your video once after watching the part about the camper van, but then I just watched it again in total. I even went back several times to make sure I heard your words because obviously those are important. You talked about a bunch of things, but when we're deferring to experts, I think the overall thing you're trying to get at is, do we defer to experts? I mean, just, if they say X, then we take X to be fact because they're an expert in X. Or do we, should we always take anything somebody says and then mull that over? I think many people would. I think anytime that we hear a piece of information, let's take you and me. We hear a piece of information. We're going to carefully consider that. We're going to think about that. We're going to think about, is that accurate? Is it not? What influenced that information? Even if the person doesn't tell us any of these things in whatever that media is that we just consumed, we're still going to be thinking about things. But when we then talk about, we're making our own argument to somebody else, we're going to refer to that thing if it supports our argument. Sometimes even if we know it's shaky, we're still going to refer to it. So I think we naturally do that, even if somebody comes across as says they're an expert, or somebody says this person is an expert and their conclusion is this. Our natural inclination is to be not mistrusting or distrustful, but just cautious in accepting it. But it's interesting because there is, when does misinformation become dangerous? So take those, the riot that was just in Northern England. Is that where it was, Northern England? Which was primarily generated because of misinformation that was put out there and then shared. Certainly was in the sort of those right-wing groups, which they're going to just I mean, we all are going to say what we say. That doesn't make any sense. So is there a role for government, or is there a role for anyone? It could be Elon Musk, right? To police clearly bad information, or should they just simply be, I mean, Musk's argument is, my job is simply, or the guy who owns Telegram, his belief is that people should get to use this however they want and say whatever they want and post whatever they want. And my job is not to police that stuff. That's your responsibility. And I don't think it's quite as clear cut as yes it is or no it's not, simply because not everybody, it's tough. Should everybody have, as you said, people should just take the responsibility to think critically. You're absolutely right, they should, but they don't. I have a very dear relative who is convinced that COVID was created and released by the Democrats in order to manipulate the election. So that is one that it's, I'm not sure that any amount of critical thinking, maybe it would solve that, because I can talk about it's, I don't know what I'm trying to say, Dan, here. It feels like these are most people's beliefs, or things that they take as fact are things that they want to believe to confirm whatever their biases are. It makes life easier. It makes life more predictable. Not everybody wants to think that hard. You talked about doctors, and, to your point with Sarah's surgery, there's a lot of people who might have been in Sarah's position, or you're in Sarah's position, who don't have the confidence, the education to do that, to do what you guys did, to do that research. And in fact, they do want to defer to an expert. You did say something about fundamentalist religious approach is to take something as given because someone knows more than you. I'm not sure if that's exactly what you meant. I find that religion falls into a different category, because if you've got somebody who is the mouthpiece of God and you take that as a given, then you have to take everything that they say as being of what God wants us to do. I mean, every faith, certainly including the Baha'i faith, has tenets of that faith, or has things that the believer should follow, which for those who are not in that faith, they don't seem rational or correct. And those people outside get frustrated because they're like, this isn't logical. This isn't just, this isn't. But if you're inside that faith and you assume that that person is in fact a voice of God, then you have to take that. You have to take their word as expert is not quite the right word if you're talking about a prophet of God, but certainly, in the Catholic Church, they've done that for thousands of years. The Pope is the expert. The Pope is the voice of God as defined by a past Pope. So anyway, and so I was thinking about, in my life, who do I think of as experts? And I think of Tom Friedman as an expert, because you were talking about Israel. But even when I read his stuff, even when I read his book, I didn't agree with everything, but his is an opinion that I seek, even though I don't agree with everything he says, but I do consider him a good person to listen to But you're right. If I just somehow set Friedman up on a pedestal and said everything Friedman says is true, and I shouldn't have to look any farther than just his words, I'm sure there's those who do that. So you were saying that the role of an expert is to explain their methodology and their supporting information that led to whatever the conclusion is, so that we can then assess that information for ourselves. And again, I think that works for some people, and I really don't think it works for other people. Should everyone take the responsibility for doing that? Yes. Should everyone be trained in this sort of critical thinking? Yes. But I think the history of our world is shaped by the fact that the majority of people don't do that. And I think that that's okay. I'm not sure what you're going to do about it, or what we should do about it, or what anyone should do about that, other than try to teach critical thinking, try to teach taking the mantle of responsibility. But still, there's going to be a whole swath of people who are convinced that the Democrats released COVID, and that Trump was behind his own assassination attempt. So do we simply get rid of that information and make sure that never comes to light? And you're right, a government is just simply made up of people, so there's no such thing as government should, because do we want Trump, if he's elected as the head of our government, to make decisions as to what is misinformation and what is not? I think we both would agree on the answer to that question. The next question I have for you, which is, and I've not looked at all the studies you've looked at. I'm just sort of thinking about this just in a general sense of the ideas, without actually going into the information, because I have not enough information to talk about the studies on deaths, in Gaza. My next question is why, is more of a meta question for you, and that's, why are you engaging in this in such a way that it makes you angry and frustrated? It's actually a sincere question, because I don't think it does not appear to make you happy. At times it can make it difficult to engage with you, because you're so uptight about it that it's hard to actually just talk about it. It feels a bit like watching sports, and the amount of frustration that watching or having a soccer team, or it's what is motivating you? Is it just because you're intellectually curious, and so these are things you naturally gravitate towards? But I guess that's it. That's all I have. I know I was supposed to, at the 10-minute, the 12-minute, and the 16-minute mark, I should have said, I know I'm going on too long about this, but I want to make sure I got it at least to 19 minutes. That was a joke. So anyway, that's all I got. I'm going to leave you with this picture, which I think sums up everything. And that's my story. And I'm sticking to it.